Hello there, Force of Will players, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing a Wanderer tournament report. Going to be going over the two Wanderer events that have occurred this season, both the event that occurred in Madrid, Spain, as well as the event that occurred this past weekend at GP Minnesota in North America. As far as I'm aware, these are going to be the only two major events that are under this format, this ban list, this set release, all that stuff. The next, at least for the Americas, the next American event, large event, is going to be in September, which is after, I believe, New World Order is the set name. That the next set releases with all the contract rulers, etc., etc. And then we might, I believe we also get a ban list simultaneously or around the same time. So we'll be in a kind of new format going into that event, as well as FowFest in November. So, but anyway, taking a look at this. This is the deck lists from Madrid, Spain. We'll talk about this one first because it occurred first. So it occurring first means it might have had an effect on what people brought to the American event. I don't know how many people were at this event in Madrid. I'm unsure. We had 39 entrants for the event in Minnesota. So anyway, first place was Gruz Ballesta Mujdart. It was just kind of like a value, good stuff type deck, using Pricia's Guardian Dragon of the Kingdom in order to facilitate more will, stuff like that. IU was used for like draw power, etc., etc. And then you have like March of the Dead, Origin, things like that. Just good stuff deck, kind of. I believe its whole like idea was built to beat Zeus, with like Witch of the Fallen Kingdoms in the main, 4 of them. As well as like Dry Wings and other things like Attendance on the side, Blazer as well. It seems very pigeonholed to try and beat Zeus. And then Alejandro was playing this, probably the best player in Spain. And then second place for this event, we have Zeus. So Zeus has shown to be very prominent within the just events as a whole. I didn't actually go through all of these decks first for this one, so I'm unsure of how many Zeuses were in the top 8 for this, but we had 3 Zeuses in the top 8 for GP Minnesota, and we had 11 total entrants on Zeus. So Zeus is just looking to be like the best deck. People want to play it. It's a better deck. Nothing too crazy about this list by Ivan that I can see here. They opted to put Witch of the Fallen Kingdom in the main, which is interesting. They are playing Fallen Angel of Fiery Vengeance, but they aren't playing what's it called, Rhea. Because Rhea is like a free kind of order activation with Fallen Angel of Fiery Vengeance, right? You Rhea, you pitch Fiery Angel, and then sack it off. Fiery Angel is kind of the same thing, because you can play it, order it, and then sack it off for its own effect, and then fail to find on the search and just have it engrave. But you would have to do that at sorcery speed, where Rhea you can do at instant speed. So it allows you for another kind of like use of an instant speed dump on turn, like if you're going second, right? So you don't have to only rely on like an essence or something else. It's just another option, and you can unorder her easily. IU, very good draw engine, also very good like mana ramp, right? Like Zeus is predominantly light, all things considered. So just having access to free light will, as well as just the filter in the first place, is pretty decent, right? Because even if you don't use both light will for like other things, like you can use one to filter and then play the other for Tea Party, or like another one for like Zeus enters the Game of Gods, right? Like you use it for other value. I think Gatekeeper is a really interesting card as well for the list. Gatekeeper, I'd have to see if people played Gatekeeper in the NA events. I don't know the deck lists by heart. It'd be interesting to see if they played Gatekeeper. It's very good for just dumping all the Olympians that you search out of your hand in order to get Union 7 online. Trying to see if there's anything unique about the board. Nothing really. Virgilius is kind of interesting. don't think Virgilius is that great, but I'm not entirely sure what they brought it in against. Or for, I should say. Decay in the board for like Drywing stuff. Otherwise this looks fairly like usual. Keys' Call is probably a little bit of like a tech option, sort of. March of the Dead is a little bit of a tech. I think some other lists were playing it. And then Rogue Spectator, Exorcist. Yeah, none of this is Shackles is interesting. I don't know why the Shackles is in there, but maybe it was for like Belial. Probably like Belial Asmodeus. Yeah, that makes sense. Third place, also Zeus. They were playing... Oh, what are those cards? Hang on. I think these were like other free cards to... Blackleaf can kill itself. Or just like give something -4/-4. So it's just another good option there. Moujdart's Illusionary Soldier. Return this card to its owner's hand. That's interesting. I think Dragonoid Rogue bounces itself. Yeah, so they're just cards to get free flips on your turn in order to do stuff on the following turn. And then I actually don't know what this IU also returns itself to the hand. Interesting. So they played a lot more heavier return this card to the hand type stuff. I do like the addition of Flame of Outerworld. I'm not incredibly against Flame of Outerworld, but I'm not super big on it either. If people want to play it like as like a tech option or they don't, either one is kind of fine with me. It does help to like kill things that might be in play that are hard to deal with, and like prevent your opponent from like, you know, being able to answer it right. So like, for example, if they have like a Hera on Union 7, being able to just hit the Hera for 800, kill it, and then continue with your play lines, very good. Being able to just get rid of a witch if you need to, very good, right? So I personally like Flame of Outerworld, especially the one where you can cast it while searching, but I understand if some people don't. Sylvia's Burning Flame. Sylvia's Burning Flame is interesting. Maybe it's the same line, but it's just like not like uncancelable or unchaseable. It's just more removal, but it also can like punch through stuff. Parasol is kind of interesting, gets you like a free shuffle, but outside of that it's not doing too much. Shiva's Essence of Shiva's Power, I'm not a big fan of. Fight cards in general, just because they require 2 targets, so even though it's 1 will, you're never playing it on 1. And then let's look at the board. They went more heavier on cancels, it looks like. Well, they have like every cancel in the game in their board. Seal, number 13, Third Boon, Gale of the Winds, Zeke's. Necronomicon Barrier is actually pretty good in the board for both decks. Like, it stops like Poseidon Infinites and things like that. So Necro Barrier is quite strong in the mirror. The Alice in the mirror is interesting, or in the side is interesting. They're also not playing like an Origins board, right? Like they just don't have Origin and Drywing and all that stuff. I don't know why they have the Alice in the board per se. It does count as a new 12 Olympian, so it'll get your Union 7 online more, but only if it's in the main. So I'm unsure why they're just sideboarding it and not maining it. They're also not playing Typhonomachy, which I think that's a lot better with Typhonomachy. But that was the 3rd place list by Antoine. 4th place, this was Belial Asmodeus by Javier. New 12 Olympians. So you just try and Asmo Goddard twice and then win the game. It's you want to hit. Well, I mean, I guess once. Like if you can Asmo Goddard once and you remove 7 different new 12 Olympian names, like, great, you're kind of doing it. You're in there. Gatekeeper, same concept as what we saw in the 2nd place Zeus list. The funny part about the deck, if you see the sideboard, how they can sideboard into Zeus, I find that quite hysterical. I'm kind of curious how 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, because you'd have to remove 20 cards. Can they even sideboard into Zeus? Hang on. I don't think they can. Maybe they thought Origin revealing Zeus would make it count. Maybe. I am unsure why there's a Zeus in the sideboard, because I don't think you can ever legally sideboard into it in this deck. But whatever. Satan, sure, Dispelling Stone, Drywing for like an Origin board, Pumpkin Witch, because we have we have Black Witches, and then Witch of the Fallen Kingdoms seems normal, I guess, like a normal list, and then the Cradles. Belial Dante Inferno combo. So this is just getting your life down as low as possible, and then, or basically to 0 while you're under Belial, and then Infernoing your opponent. They aren't playing any of the, they're not playing like Silmeria, like Dance of Spirits. So they're not playing like the Law of Silence type effects, which is interesting. But they have a lot more like discard through like look. They're playing Setting the Stage, I guess, which is pretty similar in the grand scheme of things. Honestly, probably better. Especially with like being able to play like Moonshades and like other things like that. Aphrodite is interesting as an option. Gaining the 2k life and drawing the card. It's interesting as an option partially because since you're starting at 2k, but they're not playing any of the like Belial payoff cards, if you notice. Like they're not playing Prideful Rule or like anything like that. So they can just freely gain as much life as they want in order to try and keep themselves out of like danger range. So interesting list. And then 6th place was Athenia. Do they have all the stuff for the combo? Game of Gods, Elixir's Love, Death Scythe. Yeah, okay, yeah. They were just playing, I guess, like, typical Athenia, like, just, like, the combo version-ish of the deck that you would expect. And then you just have, like, witches and other things like that in order to prevent Zeus from doing stuff. It's just green darkness. Pretty typical. If you're unsure what the Athenia combo is, in my Athenia deck list, that's how I build it, and I go over what the combo is in there, so you feel free to go look at that. 7th place, another Belial Dante list, looks to be exactly the same. They're just, looks to be pretty much exactly the same. And then 8th place was the Shiva Awakening of Gruz Ballesta, like, stone list that we had seen previous. Interesting, cool that they included Themis. As Themis just being a way to, it's like a pretty like big turnoff for Zeus, right? Like you make none of their things have new 12 pins, so they can't be searched. Quite strong against that stuff. And then they're already in darkness, right? Interesting that they also include the echidnas for like extra flips. I actually really like that, like this design of what they went for with the Shiva, because they just have the stone stuff in general, playing Absorbing Knowledges to kill their things when they need to, and then just playing like the better Typhon machine cards since they're in darkness already. I actually really like that design. I think that's really smart by Carlos. But so those were the top 8. So what was the expectation from us, like kind of going in? Well, we have all these like Inferno combo lists, and then we have a bunch of Zeuses that did well, and then we have this weird Moujdark Gruz Ballesta list that no one's really talking about. And no one really wanted to play this list. It's very much just kind of like how Feasting was, but like Feath Mouge, but it's just Gruz Mouge. And then has some other different cards in it. So I don't think a lot of people were looking to play that list, but what the Americans ended up doing was they went out of their way and found a combo deck. Outside of the like Shiva Stone combo deck that we had. So first place was Jordan Williams on Zeus, right? So again, we had 3 for America's event. We had 3 Zeuses in top cut. We had 1 Alice. We had 1 Typhon, and then we had 3 Almerius Mylest. And the Almerius Mylest decks were all combo decks. 2 of them were the same list, I believe, for the most part. They worked on it together, and then one of them was a different list entirely. There is also a third Mylest Almerius deck that got 10th place at the event, so it just barely missed out on top 8, and those were the only 4 people that were playing. So none of the people playing Mylest Almerius got below 10th seed in the tournament, even though it was only 39 players. So the power level just of the combo deck, very strong, and I did like a couple test hands with it and things. It's very consistent, and it can play through like certain interaction. So, but anyway, Jordan's list, Phantasmal Ascendant, very powerful like addition just for the deck. He is playing the Mikage Rhea as well as the Fallen Angel. Fallen Angel of Black Tears is interesting. It's just another way to get rid of Witch of the Fallen Kingdom, in addition to like other maybe tech options. Another thing that was interesting about Jordan's list, he's not playing Darkness of Zeus. He just opted to not play Darkness, I guess. which is fine. It's just a tech option, I guess. It's probably the weakest of the four in the grand scheme of things. So him not playing it is it's fine. I don't really have a say in it. Having the Ares in the board is interesting. He probably thought he was going to search Ares the least, or just have it and play the least. So having it as an option to reveal off of Origin was quite strong. Tea Party, Typhon Omaki, March, all of this. He opted to play Witch of Blowing Winds in the main, and then he had 0 the King's Blade to prevent Resonators return that they controlled returning to their hand, and preventing the opponent from drawing multiple cards in a turn, which is strong against like Typhon or things like that. Against Zeus, it's also quite strong against, like, it stops the Poseidon from going off, right? So good there. Sideboard, Curse of Caduceus is interesting. What would you be preventing your opponent from gaining life? I guess Typhon? I guess you would side in against Typhon is the idea. Prevent them from, like, resetting their life total with, like, Typhon's Heart or anything like that. 7th boon for God's Arts decks, and then Mechanized Fenrir in the board, right? Because you can have villains in your board. Just being able to play Mechanized Fenrir, also quite good since it stops non-machine abilities, so it'll stop all the neutral Olympians in like a mirror. And since you can play it from outside of the game, it's just free. So quite strong. But so that was first place. Second place was Logan Moses on the Mylest Almerius deck. So what is the design behind the deck? Like, what is it supposed to do? Well, you use Zeus Liang in order to get a bunch of will and then kill your opponent, combo off. Gatekeeper is actually a tech option we had talked the night before the tournament. This was originally the alternative Hoel Pig card, which I believe Blake... Yeah, I believe Blake was playing it in his board. Yeah, so here, this alternative card, Hoel Pig Food Supply, that was originally Gatekeeper, and then we opted to take them out and put Gatekeeper in, because a lot of the time your hand would be stuck with these darkness cards that you couldn't play, or just like removal, like Gradius or other things like that, that you didn't want to play. And you would just have a bunch to filter out, and you could draw more cards, and it was in red. So Gatekeeper was like a last-minute option, and I believe I'd have to ask them, but I believe it went very well for them in the grand scheme of things. And then, so Zeus, every time you take damage, whenever an effect you control deals damage to you, you produce red. So what the idea behind the deck is you get a Zeus Liang out, and then you produce red, and then if you activate like Percival, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, add a Fire Resonator cost 2 or less to your hand, or a Regalia, because you could get Horn technically. You would filter through your deck with Percivals, with Gatekeeper, with Conclave at Dragon Mountain, and then with Reunion between the Master and Pupil, which would get you 2 cards. Dragon Crystal is also technically a filter, because you'd pay it for 1, ping yourself for 0, and that would produce a mana off of Zeus Liang, so it would be paid for 0 effectively. Same thing with Percival, because you could, because you could banish Percival to deal damage to yourself. So you could damage yourself, produce a red off of Zeus Liang. And then the end con, like win con, is you just have so much life that you can just take all this damage because of Almerius. And you get to a point where you have like 3 Zeuses in play, and then you ping yourself with Magical Arrow after drawing it. And every time you spend 1 mana, if you have 3 Zeuses, you get 2 mana back. You get like 2 extra mana, right? Because you would pay 1, you get 3, you go 2 positive. If you have 2 Zeuses, you go 1 positive. If you have 4 Zeuses, you go 3 positive. So you'd ping yourself an amount of times until you could deal 40 to your opponent, and then you would deal 40 to your opponent and kill them. And that was the idea. If you were playing against Typhon, or like another Almerius player, or like anything like that, what the win con was at that point was you had to draw Athena, and you had to draw Dante Enters the Game of Gods. And you would play your Athena, you would play a Dante Enters the Game of Gods on your Athena to give it Drain, and then every time you would ping you would activate Athena's effect to ping both you and your opponent, you would gain 200. So for every 100 you lost, you would gain 2, right, because of Drain. Well, actually, I'd have to read if Drain says when you deal damage to anything or when you deal damage to, like, something your opponent controls. But I'm pretty sure you just gain 2. Either way, at the very least, you go, like, neutral on damage, so you would still be able to do it infinitely. So you just infinitely ping your opponent until they die, so on and so forth. And that was how the deck plays. And then it just has Origin, there's just a 1 of origin in order to get Dry Wings or other things like that. 2 witches on the board, 2 witches in the main. March of the Dead revives Zeus Liang, so if you go second, you can use the red off of my list to play as Zeus Liang. If it's countered or killed with the 1 mana that your opponent has, you can then March of the Dead in order to bring it back, and then you would have your Energize as well as the Zeus mana to just keep going. Same technical thing if you went first, because your opponent would just have the Energize to deal with it, so you would just have multiple ways to continue playing even if your opponent had interaction with you, which is why the deck was so powerful and why people have wanted Mylest banned even when it was Bouged Art Mylest was like the combo deck, is just because like having free mana, especially on the first turn of the game, is problematic. Exceedingly problematic. But yeah, so that was the combo deck. That was what it did. Derek got 3rd place with Typhon. He loves a Stemma. Stemma and Dark Alice are his 2 favorite cards, so he always tries to play them in decks. A Stemma is not bad for Typhon necessarily. I definitely think there were certain games that he won because of a Stemma. Like he wouldn't have had lethal if he did not have a Stemma on those turns. So just being able to have that reach, even though a Stemma does cost 3, is decent. Especially because you have access to Typhon's Blood, like you're just playing mana positive anyway. Him and I talked about the list a little bit after the event. He thinks he'd probably add Mikage Rhea, just because it's another 1-drop quick cast that he can play to order on turn 1, and then immediately unorder it with like Fallen Angel of Fiery Vengeance. So same kind of thing you would do in Zeus, but you're already in darkness with Typhon, and Typhon doing it is a lot more impactful than Zeus doing it, because Typhon likes to do it before your opponent can play, so you can get like Mount Othris into play, and then have like play a Typhon's Blood, and then also have an interaction. So just a lot more powerful. And then like typical Typhon board, he really liked the Einsberg for the mirror especially. He thought it was quite strong there to like steal Mount Othris's or like other things like that. But that was the only thing we really talked about that he would change currently for the list. There are some other cards coming out that would be potentially more beneficial to play. 3rd, 4th, this is Jarrett's list. Jarrett was the other Almerius Mylest combo deck, which this one was Inferno Comboing. So this was Inferno Comboing your opponent. What you would do is set yourself to 200 life instead of 0 like the Belial decks do. Inferno, set your opponent's life to 200, tap Mylest, and kill them with the 200 damage for violence. And so you would do that via Whisper from the Abyss, Secret Duel in the Moonlight, so on and so forth. Deck is, from watching him play, the deck is very interesting. I actually really liked like what it was doing in terms of like a combo deck, because he resolved Whispers at one point, drew like 12 cards, and then was just able to produce a whole bunch of mana by like pitching Regalia, which I thought was pretty funny, and like an interesting like unique thing. I have not played this list. I cannot speak for this list. The things that I saw from watching over their games was setting the stage felt very powerful just in the main, like in general. I get that he's not like in blue predominantly, but it just, I mean, you have deep blues and Melfi's anyway, so it just felt very strong to just have setting the stage and be like, I can do whatever I want. And then outside of that was like the biggest thing that I noticed. That was like the main thing that I thought I would have like changed if I was playing the deck, is I would have mained setting the stage. But otherwise it was very fun as like a combo deck. Very interesting to like play around with and like watch and all that stuff. So that was the second version. And Almerius, my list, again, same list. Blake and Logan worked together on this, so their sideboards are a little bit different, because I believe Logan and I talked about it after Blake had left for the night, right before the event, and I don't know if that got around to him, but for the most part their lists are practically similar. We have another Zeus. So another Zeus got top 8 here. The Gill's nice as like some random tech option just because you can add stuff back to your hand. I think it's fun. I don't know if it's good, but I do think it's fun. And like the Mill gets you potentially more Olympians. Academy Guard is interesting as like a tech option. Odin Enters the Game of Gods is weird. Interesting as a tech option. It's like a light version of Oboe, but Oboe you can also order and has like field presence, whereas this doesn't. But this is in light. I mean, I guess you're in 5 color, but like outside of that 1 stone. But yeah, Zeus Alice again in the board is kind of a little weird. If you were playing Zeus Alice, I feel like you'd rather just play it in the main. And then has 1 Mount Olympus. Showing for the 5 color reveal off of Origin. Mount Olympus is also it can be sometimes kind of hard to get Mount Olympus into play during like a Zeus mirror. So having 1 in the board to reveal is also kind of nice. In addition to the 5 color, and then 1 Magna and Lenneth, probably just the one they looked for the least. Another Zeus list. This has kind of everything we've talked about already. This looks very similar to Jordan's list and the not playing Darkness of Zeus and the Curse of Caduceus. I'm unsure if they were from the same area or not, but they might have been. But very, very, very similar to what Jordan was playing for the most part. And then we have Alice from Joe Veronic, opting to play the Fairies of Ma'at. Card's honestly quite good. Like having Barrier, like getting to 5 Regalia isn't too difficult, like honestly. And so like being able to just like have this random card, like if you're at 5 Regalia, this is a 2100 with Barrier and flying. Like it's kind of hard to deal with, and it can slowly like beat down your opponent. Shiva Enters the Game of Gods, honestly a very neat tech option. 1, just to give your board Eternal in the first place, and 2, if you have the pump off of Ayu, it's a draw 3, right? Like you can use it as a fight option and then draw 3. So if you attack with Ayu and your opponent's only option is to block, right, you can Shiva Enters the Game of Gods in response, kill the thing they're blocking with, and then still draw 3. So I really enjoy that like interaction and stuff like that. So I like that option. Leonor's Varia, very, very powerful card. I've seen some weird things happen because of Leonor's Varia. Yeah, and then Attendant in the main, probably for Zeus specifically. Maybe Typhon as well, just because it works against Typhon. We can see the Regalia Beasts. Regalia Beasts is just good. It's a mana dork, but it also counts as a Regalia, and it's an Omni dork. So, Death Scythe, not. Don't know what deck you would play Death Scythe against. All of the like good decks right now are Order decks. I'm not really sure what's getting like Swiftness or Imperishable that's a J ruler. Maybe if you want the for like remove 3 option for like pitching or something, but I'm unsure what that would be for. There's a Dark Alice, Witch for Zeus, Decay of the Machines for like those kinds of things. They're not playing an Origins board. It's just very typical, like kind of like it's more like a control board where they just have different like options for like grind games and things like that, and then their main is I mean Ayu is just like one of the best aggro tools in the game. So and that was the American GP. So I mean Alice we've seen kind of put up some options even with the lack of Excalibur due to the Ayu Excalibur combination ban. So interesting stuff there. Again, we've seen a whole lot of like Zeus performance, right? And then I mean Almeria's Mylist kind of coming out of nowhere, sort of not. I'm unsure. Oh no, they would have had to have event would have had to have the stuff if they had Zeus. So Americans are very known just for like more combo centric decks. Like we just look for combo decks. That is very typical of the American like metagame or American players. So I'm not surprised that these like kind of came out of nowhere, and that there were 3 different ones. The fact that they all did relatively well. The third one was like an infinite turns loop with like Brunhild and Final Stance and stuff like that. But they did quite well. So it'll be interesting to look forward to the new ban list, what potentially might get hit. I mean, the things that we can obviously see right away, right, is that Zeus needs to get hit. Mylist probably just needs to be banned at this point. Like, I mean, he's combo banned with, like, everything else. Just, like, remove 2 of the combination bans or 3 of the combination bans and just straight up ban my list, right? It makes the combination ban list shorter. People don't have to worry about it. Like, that seems decent. Zeus Liang, I'd honestly keep on, like, a quasi-watch list. My thing with Zeus is the fact that Zeus Liang is also a human. Humans are just inherently more strong because of Harvesting Season Einherjar summon. And so having access to that still makes the Zeus could potentially just like become a thing again. However, you wouldn't have the 7,000 life, so I'm unsure of where the deck would go in that scenario, but it would be something that I would like need to look out. I would think you would want to look out for. Typhon didn't put up a whole lot of results in Spain, and then I don't know how well it's been doing otherwise outside of this one top that it had here. I don't know if it's doing anything crazy per se. I don't know what else you could hit. I mean, Typhon already has like 3 different combination bans in its deck. Like, you can't play Typhon and Themis, you can't play Echidna and Typhon's Wave of Terror, and you're always playing Echidna, so you're just not playing Typhon's Wave of Terror. And then, like, you can't play Typhon Whispers from the Abyss. So, like, I don't know if they want or need to do more. Deck seems kind of fine, but there are also some pretty good Darkness cards that are coming out in the next set. And then the better Darkness... there's some really good Darkness cards coming out in the next set. So, so, like, we'll see what happens with that and whether or not they choose to make more potential combination bans. Already talked about that. Zeus, the Zeus stuff, I'm unsure of what you really hit in Zeus necessarily, right? Like, you could combination ban Olympians with Zeus to like cut down on the Olympian count. You can ban other stuff outright. The weird thing about combination banning Olympians is it also indirectly hits the decks that are trying to just play Union 7 outright, which means at that point you're trying to combination ban Zeus with the Olympians specifically. And I'm just like unsure of like what you would necessarily hit. The most egregious Olympians are probably Artemis and then Poseidon, maybe? I mean, Poseidon's like the infinite for like the win con, but I'm unsure if he's like the bad. Artemis like definitely needs to go. Like Artemis is absurd. I mean, the other thing you could do is ban Zeus with his stone, I guess. That would lower like the 5-color ceiling, which would make it more awkward to play the amount of colors that they do. I'm just unsure. It's really weird because it's singleton, but because they printed, again, I've talked about this with my stuff, new 12 Olympians, essences, the elements, like all that stuff. They printed 3 different mechanics and just threw them together and were like, hey, all this synergizes into a really good deck. Makes it like kind of hard to start like combo banning things, especially because it's singleton, right? Like, I mean, if you combo ban like Zeus and Zeus enters the Game of Gods, that like really lowers the floor on or the ceiling on like what the deck can do. But yeah, but like my immediate thought just from playing the deck a couple times and seeing that Artemis needs to go. Whatever else they do from there, I'd kind of have to see. But yeah, and then Alice seems fine. I don't think Alice needs to be hit anymore. It snuck in the top 8. But yeah. So anyway, that is the tournament report for this. I might do like a tier list update where I just kind of move everything around. Maybe I'll share it on like my Twitter, which there is a link to in the description of all of my videos. So you feel free to go follow me on that. Don't post a lot, but sometimes I will if I can't do content for a week or anything like that. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Look forward to the spoiler sets. We're going to be there are going to be a lot of cards I have to talk about because I didn't do a video last week due to some things. But I will be talking about all of those in the next video. But thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.